MTHFR is often blamed as a culprit for anxiety. Oh, you have MTHFR, therefore you have anxiety. I see it somewhat in the reverse. I see it as there's just as much anxiety from people who totally without context find out they have these common mutations and then go to a forum like Reddit or start doing internet research and really put themselves in a bad way with their mental health because they're terrified of this mutation that's shared by a large, not to say that's not impactful, but it's shared by a large percentage of the population. And then they rush into the arms of aggressive salespeople who put them on really, really, really unfortunate protocols that then exacerbate their mental, and it creates a spiral where they are worried about something that actually is something that can be approached in a much more methodical and chill way and does not show your whole destiny. So with that whole backdrop, could you give us just what is important about MTHFR and what is not? It just like the elevator pitch to somebody to calm somebody down who may be either under or overreacting to this information.
Yeah, totally. And so what I usually say is MTHFR is not a pathologic mutation. MTHFR is a variant is a gene for which there are several common variants, and they're super common. And it depends on what population you're looking at and what study you're looking at. But I generally say like 75% of the population has at least one of the common variants of MTHFR. And the two common ones, depending on which way you're talking about them. There's the C677T variant, which is potentially a more impactful one. There's the A1298C. I think they've renamed them now, but anyway, those are like the two ones that are common. And it is true that depending on which combination of those gene variants you have, the efficiency of that enzyme can be decreased by as much as 70%. And it is true that that having low methylation can be associated with different symptoms, like impaired detoxification, like anxiety and OCD and fatty liver disease and fatigue and maybe histamine intolerance, some of those other things. But just because someone has a variant in MTHFR does not by any means mean that any of those things are for sure going to happen, or even necessarily likely to happen. Because again, these are variants that are extremely prevalent in the population. And this is where I then usually have the conversation about the importance of understanding how the penetrance of a gene. And so penetrance is basically how robustly a gene is expressed. How likely are you to have the consequences or the sequela of having a specific gene if you have a variant of it? And a lot of the genes that we talk about in the nutrigenomic space are what we think of it as low penetrance genes, meaning just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're going to have an issue with it. And so the counter to that in the oncology space is high penetrance genes, or genes that are highly expressed. And those are genes like BRCA, or the Brecka gene, which is strongly associated with an increased cancer risk. And so I tend to make this distinction between those high penetrance genes and the low penetrance genes. MTHFR is not like BRCA. It is it's not like you're going to have a 70 to 80% increased risk of cancer or lifetime risk of cancer. These are genes for which there are increased associations if you're looking at a population level of certain types of disease. But when you get to the granular level of the individual, it just helps create a part of the picture. And so I like to use these gene tests to create a blueprint, basically an overall picture of what someone's strengths and weaknesses are likely to be from a genetic standpoint.